Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is that you are, wherever you may be. Thank you very much for making us a part of your day. I am Brad Franklin, creative content right here in Chesterfield, and I'm very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. We have a really fun show for you, information packed, lots to dissect, lots to discuss. Before we get started, let me introduce you to today's guest. First, we have Dr. Ted Raspiller, who is the president of Brightpoint Community College, formerly John Tyler Community College. How are you, sir?
Just fine. Glad to be with you today, Brad.
Glad to have you. Obviously, I checked out your presentation to the Board of Supervisors last week and was really interested to hear a lot of the things that at the community college, the things you guys are seeing, trends and the way that, folks are coming to you and what they're coming to you for, what you're hearing from businesses, what you're hearing from corporations about ways to prepare the workforce and what the economy sort of needs from the workforce that is adapting and changing, especially, as we kind of come out of COVID. But I want to start in a more general sort of sense. How do you kind of see Brightpoint fitting into the bigger picture, not just for Chesterfield, but maybe the Central Virginia region and the economy as a whole? How do you sort of see that intersection between what Brightpoint can do and the way it prepares students and workers versus the economy and sort of the corporations that are coming to you guys looking for that workforce?
Yeah. So there's 12 or 1,300 community colleges across the country, and they all have a very similar mission. We were all conceived about 50 years ago because community colleges were an intersection of vocational and technical schools and junior colleges. Junior colleges are designed for students that want to get a 4-year degree to do their first 2 years in a high value, low cost, convenient way. And that's still a critical piece of our mission. Technical schools, vocational and technical schools, over the years, being able to compete, a lot of that stuff came in high school, right?
Right.
It's being able to keep that lab current with all of the technology that changes in the workplace constantly, right?
Right.
So that's kind of how we started, critical mission, even more so today. We did a deep study in Virginia, 2015, and we know that if not now, very soon, over two-thirds of jobs will require skills beyond high school,
right,
but less than a bachelor's degree.
Right.
In the economic development world, we're an engine. We lead economic development. Last century, it was natural resources that companies wanted if they were going to come to an area to open a business or expand a business. Particularly advanced manufacturing, then called manufacturing. Now, advanced manufacturing, now with the electronics, the computer, the intelligence, the intelligent or smart aspects of that now require those same skills beyond high school. So if a company's going to come to a region, they're going to want to talk about a workforce. They're going to want to talk about a workforce. They're going to want to talk to a community college.
Yeah, and it feels like as things have sort of gone on, and you can correct me here if I'm wrong, but the last couple of years, it feels like maybe some things have changed. Maybe we have a better sense of what we need more so than before, or maybe we have more urgency to sort of meet that need maybe than we did before. When you hear from business, whether that's specific corporations, whether that's folks at the state level who talk about what companies want to do, what are some of the trends that you've seen? What are the places where you feel like their focus is right now, and how does that sort of help to frame the way the college does what you guys do?
Yeah, you mentioned the last couple of years, and we could talk about the pandemic, but I don't think that's really changed anything for us, but I think it's accelerated some things, right? So when we talk to employers in manufacturing environment, if I can digress here, Brad, I grew up in a blue-collar town, Aurora, Illinois.
Right.
And we had Caterpillar Tractor, we had Lion Metal, we had all steel, major industry. I think at one time Caterpillar Tractor had close to 6,000 employees. So in my high school, it was nice if you were a high school graduate, but really what you needed was good flannel shirt, good pair of work boots. Your neighbor or your uncle or your dad got you a job at one of those factories.
Right.
And that's what it was.
Right.
Now it's a whole different ballgame. I've been in this work since 1989, and I started out teaching adult literacy
Okay.
and high school completion and English as a second language. 1991, I was on the floor in Caterpillar Tractor teaching robotics, all 3 shifts.
Okay.
Teaching the math because they were bringing in the robotics, really robotics prep, but it was really math. That was where this whole thing kind of started. So what are we talking, early 90s? Fast forward 30 years. Now you're no good to us if you don't have skills specific to being able to use that kind of technology.
Right. Yeah.
So what I hear is we need more workers with more skills. I think the mindset is not, what can I get done in high school or my first couple of years out of high school? It's about lifelong learning. It's about being a good learner and understanding that there's going to be a lot of times throughout your career where you're going to have to upskill, we call it.
Right.
And there's been a huge demand in this area. We're in the advanced manufacturing corridor of Virginia, if not the eastern seaboard. And there's been a big call for that through our Community College Workforce Alliance with Reynolds Community College. We do a lot of customized training, a lot of incumbent worker or people already on the job training.
Right.
And so the conversation with employers aren't what kind of graduates that you have that I can use. The conversation is what kind of learners do you have that we can engage with and then work together through their career. So that transcends manufacturing. That's healthcare. That's IT, needless to say. That's a lot of the folks that we work with.
I know during the presentation, Dr. Figge, who coincidentally was our first guest on the podcast back in the day,
the coach,
which was only like a few months ago. Why did I say back in the day? Like it was like
September,
30 years
dude.
ago.
It wasn't that far
I know,
back.
right? It wasn't that wasn't that long ago. But he mentioned that coming up next fall, or I guess now this fall, because we're now in a different year. I promise I'll get this down soon. Is that you guys are adding pharmaceutical manufacturing? A course. The CSC. I wasn't necessarily sure if that meant a course load, but can you help me understand sort of what that is and how that fits into the big picture?
Sure. So the pharmaceutical manufacturing movement that started a year or 2 years ago, really about at the advent of the pandemic, we learned in this country that having all of our drugs, right, our pharmaceuticals, whether it's a vaccine, whether it's a prescription from a doctor, having all that manufactured overseas, which at one time was much more cost effective,
right?
But now that may or may not be the case. What it's not is efficient,
right?
And so that's why this movement started at the federal level, the movement to onshore, not just pharmaceutical, but many companies like that.
Right.
We've got 3 down in Petersburg, Hopewell, that Tri-Cities area, primarily Petersburg, and what they're going to do is they take the different ingredients, mix them together in a pill form, in a liquid form if it's a vaccine.
Right.
That's what they're going to do. So what they need is a workforce really that can do 3 things. First of all, people that can invent and create those processes at the engineering level.
Right.
People that are more highly skilled technicians that can oversee that process once it's been conceived, and they need a bunch of technicians. We used to say 1, 2, 7. For every engineer, they need 2 people at bachelor degree level, and then 7 technicians to support.
Right.
So what we're doing in our pharmaceutical, we're creating an ecosystem here that is going to develop that pipeline of workers. So we're working with the high schools and maybe even before high school, students interested in those careers. We're going to have a kind of a 3-prong or 3-branch approach. One will just be an entry-level credential in pharmaceutical. We do one now called MT1, Manufacturing Technician 1. That's an entry level into. We're developing a similar one for the pharmaceutical industry. And people will be able to get that and go to work as a technician. We'll have the CSC you referenced is what the acronym is for Career Study Certificate.
Okay, there you go.
That's a 1 year, likely a 1 year. We could have a 2 year, but this is going to be a 1 year kind of immersion. You don't take the math and science and other things. You just study programs in that career. So get that certificate. I don't know if Bill said it. Dr. Figge said it the other night, probably 30 credit hours, 36 credit hours, about a year's worth. But the third pathway will be a full associate's degree that we will have already articulated so it will transfer to VCU, VSU, others that have the engineering program that matches up with pharmaceutical manufacturing. And I know VCU has been our strongest partner with that as they're developing one. So those kind of three things. Here's the beautiful part of it, Brad. You don't have to pick out of the chute that you want to be an engineer. You can start with that entry-level credential. As I tell students all the time, not just in manufacturing, get the entry-level credential, get the job, work with the employer to pay for the rest of that education, right? That's one way we get around this incredible student loan debt is let's not take the whole thing on. Let's get going. And just to be clear, these are good careers. This isn't $7, $8, $9, $10 an hour jobs, right? Probably twice that to start. The number they've given us for technicians, $50,000 to $70,000 a year, and that we know these three companies are going to need 90 to 100 probably each year for the foreseeable future while they get settled and expand, and then know that our other economic development partners are trying to get more and more pharmaceutical manufacturing industries in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, and one of the things you said the other night that was really interesting was the idea of careers and not just work. The idea that, to your point just a second ago, that what you're talking about preparing folks for is not necessarily maybe what maybe people traditionally think of, and I think it's an interesting piece with advanced manufacturing, what that used to be versus what it is now, right? What community colleges maybe some people think of versus all of the different skill sets that you can prepare kids for, but it's not necessarily just kids. It's learners of all ages and career switchers. So maybe some of us who are on podcasts, who knows, right?
Who knows?
But I thought was interesting though is that you said the other night that, and I want to get this number right, that as a head count, 8,500 or so students, and then there all of that 8,028 are Chesterfield residents.
That's right.
And so in essence, and I mean I know that this is probably making the thing too simplistic. Brightpoint is for all intents and purposes Chesterfield's kind of college if you think about it from that standpoint, in terms of the amount of folks who come to Brightpoint from Chesterfield County, and it really sort of seems like a good opportunity, not just for the county but for Brightpoint and the partnership there between the two, in terms of building out that workforce, preparing them for jobs that they can not only what's the whole adage, right? You want to live, play, work. Do it all in one place. This is an opportunity to get the education and get prepared for the job, as you said, not just that's kind of entry level, ground floor kind of thing, but something that's more of a career, not just a job. As you look at the bigger picture going forward, where do you feel like things are headed in that direction? You mentioned pharmaceutical, you've mentioned obviously advanced manufacturing, but there's a lot more that goes with that, and there's certainly other trends and things. How do you feel? Where do you feel like the next couple years will take you in terms of Brightpoint?
Yeah. So first of all, while our numbers in enrollment clearly follow the population, right? So there are 2 counties in Virginia that have 2 community college campuses. Chesterfield happens to be one of them, right? And so the other one is a small one out along Chesapeake Bay and Rappahannock Community College. The reason that they have 2 is the distance across the county. The reason that we have 2 is to serve that population. Chester was the first one. But we serve 7 counties, including Chesterfield and the Tri-Cities. So we draw people from there, but they're coming to learn and they're then coming to work a lot of times. A lot of times they're going to go right back and they've already got connections with work. So I think, what we're going to see more of, we believe it, is our degree enrollment is down about 10%, as I shared with the board over the last 2 years. And we think that's largely attributed to COVID and the things that all the quarantining has brought upon us. In our high demand workforce credential world, also known as fast forward, these are credentials, and it's a variety of them. Right now, the hottest one is truck driving, CDL, commercial driver's license. You come to me 6-8 weeks later, 10, depending on how quickly you pick up the non-driving components. But we're going to have you on the road with a CDL back to work, right? And so that's going to continue. We have 36 of those. Enrollment overall in those credentials is up 54%. That's probably not just due to COVID, although part of that is people lost their jobs, right? Whether they were in retail or whatever. And so they had to get something quick. They couldn't come and sit down for a whole degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so they jump into a credential program, pharmacy tech, you name it, where we're seeing high demand, high growth, advanced manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
And let's not forget, precision machining,
Right.
Industrial maintenance is in that portfolio, as well as the skilled trades, electricity, industrial electricity,
Mm-hmm.
HVAC, heating, ventilating, air conditioning. Those are all in that portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare is probably right now still the number one unmet need in the greater Richmond area.
Absolutely.
Is registered nurses.
Right.
And we do nursing, we do EMS, we do a lot of onboarding, certified nurse aid, phlebotomy, big play there. The other one is IT, and it's not just because of HQ2 up in Northern Virginia.
Right.
Although we've just recently, last year, we rolled out 9 Amazon Web Services AWS credentials in and an online distance format. So I think as intriguing as it is, the areas as much as they're changing, it's also the delivery that's changing. March of 2019, we didn't have any of those credentials that you could really do at a distance. Mm-hmm. Now, unless you need to do the hands-on piece, obviously we're not going to teach you to drive a truck over the
internet.
over the internet. But those programs all have components that we can do. So that's been able to open this up even further to people. So it's clearly going to require broadband. And then I think that's where probably Chesterfield's done a good job, but our other localities are getting on board. And I know in the legislature this year, they're talking a lot about expanding broadband for people. That's just not to connect to a job. Mm-hmm. That's also to train for a job and right to work in it. So I think the other thing is people are commuting less. So we have to think about what does that mean for us? I think for last century, maybe a lot of people that lived in Chesterfield drove over to Richmond to work, right? Mm-hmm. Last few years, and certainly with the pandemic, more and more of them are staying at home. So we need to get those same services out to them in a way that works.
Yeah. All right, last question for you. Now, and I want to drill into one thing. You mentioned advanced manufacturing specifically, and having talked to folks in this realm and such, that seems to be such a different sort of opportunity now than it used to be. And I'm just curious from your point of view, how different it is in terms of preparing that workforce. Was there a lot that you had to do to sort of shift in that direction as that, you mentioned, onshoring a lot of these jobs and these kinds of things. Has that process for advanced manufacturing, has that been, challenging for the college? How have you guys adapted to it and where do you feel like you are in that process?
Yeah, I like to think that we're leading that process as best we can. We're a state agency, right? So we've got a lot of pieces. But I'll tell you what, back in that day, I was talking about getting out of high school, getting that flannel shirt, and heading on over to Caterpillar and making, $15-20 an hour. Those days are gone in that kind of a workplace. Yeah. Now, and I'm getting to your question in a long way here, Brad. But now those are preferred places to work. I want to share one quick thing with you, and then I'll get back. The Center for Work up at Georgetown University, Anthony Carnevale's work. He spoke at our retreat about 4 years ago. This is data that he's gathered nationally. The Associate of Applied Science degree. Now, we do 2 transfer degrees, Associate of Art, Associate of Science. Applied Science is where all these things that we're talking about are housed. Registered nurse, paramedic, all the healthcare pieces, all those advanced manufacturing, the machining, the welding, all those are in that AAS degree. And I think probably most of your listeners know the traditional Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science degree, right?
Right.
What Carnevale's work has showed us is the person that gets out of high school, gets their 4-year degree, catches up in salary to the Associate of Applied Science degree holder when they're about 35. They have to be in the workplace about 10 years. So these aren't those struggle to make a living, grimy, dark work environments. These are state-of-the-art, very similar to a hospital, and they do that on purpose. A lot of these processes are so advanced, you can't even touch them with your hand, right? Whether that's pharmaceutical manufacturing, microcomputer chip manufacturing. So the skill level is coupled with that environment. I think for us, challenge has certainly been to keep those environments looking just like they do. We've got a lot of good community partners, a lot of support. Same thing for pharmaceutical manufacturing as we're building those labs on our campus. We've got a simulated hospital now for our nursing program. Mm-hmm. So those pieces has been a challenge for us just because of the cost of all that. But through the partnerships with the industries, right, that want to use that equipment, doesn't do them any good if I produce an employee that hasn't used the equipment that they use, right, because it's more sophisticated or whatever else.
Right.
So we've got good linkages with partners in the community. They see the need to get employees trained. They see the need to get them trained in state-of-the-art equipment, and they see the value in partnering with us. So those have strengthened over the years as one example of the change. Mm-hmm. I think the other piece is we've worked closer and closer with our K-12 partners. Mm-hmm. The sooner that students in middle school and high school get this idea that not only are they good jobs and clean jobs, but you can have a very successful career. I'll give you a quick example here. Mm-hmm. We started a program. This is my 9th year. We started a program. 2nd year I was here. Dr. Figge did in his group, and we had students come over and get this certificate in precision machining. Now, machining is one of those programs where it is really expensive to get that equipment and keep it current. And then you got to find a faculty member, right, and all that. So for a lot of the high schools here, including Chesterfield, we have students that come in and do precision machining. We had 5 kids that came over. I think it was from Amelia High School that first year. Two significant pieces. One, they shook my hand and got a certificate from John Tyler in a field where they were going to be employed right away about a month before they graduated from high school. 2 of them have already bought houses.
Oh, nice.
Now, you do that 5 years, 23 years old, buying houses.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
The point is, these are good careers. They're getting good money, and it is every bit as fulfilling as a career may be and something else where you put a suit on every day. No doubt about it. If I had a kid that was going through that, absolutely, advanced manufacturing would definitely be on the table. And I'll just say one more thing. I hear a lot, well, the robots are going to replace them. Yeah, they may someday. But you know what? When computers came big in the 1980s, I heard the same thing. Yeah. And look at the IT jobs that are out there. Yeah. So there's a lot of that court of public opinion, and then there's a reality. Yeah. And I want any of your listeners to know, check us out. Right now, we're still jtcc.edu. We'll soon be brightpoint.edu. July 1st is our official change. Yep. But just stop by our campus and take a look. I think if you check us out, you'll see not only are you going to learn in an environment that's appropriate for you wherever you're at, but also you're going to get something where tomorrow we're going to be able to put you to work.
Good deal. Well, Dr. Raspiller, thank you very much for joining the show. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, been my pleasure.
Glad to have you. All right. You can follow us on social media. On Twitter, it's at Chesterfield VA, and on Instagram, it's Chesterfield, Virginia, all one word. And on Facebook, you can check out our podcast page. Just search Chesterfield Behind the Mic. Make sure to like that page so you can keep up with us as we go forward. Now, let me tell you about all the ways you can check us out. You can watch us on our YouTube channel and on our website, chesterfield.gov/podcasts. And audio-only version of the show is available there, as well as on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, or wherever it is that you get your programs. You can also watch the podcast on WCCT Thursday through Sunday at 7 and on the weekends at noon. That's Comcast Channel 98 and Verizon Channel 28. Lastly, you can check out chesterfield.gov/connect with us for more ways for you to get in touch with us and for us to get information out to you. My thanks to Martin Stith, my director, my executive producer, Susan Pollard, and all the good people here in Chesterfield for making this possible. Thank you very much for joining us today. We'll see you again soon. Take good care.